Chance encounters Olivia Reed balanced 3 coffee cups against her chest as she fumbled with the security badge to the Westlake Contemporary Art Museum's staff entrance. 6 months into her associate curator position, and she still hadn't mastered the morning juggle. "Need a hand?" a voice called from behind her. "I've got it," she responded automatically. Just as her elbow nudged the top cup, sending coffee cascading down her cream blouse. Or maybe not. The stranger, tall with kind, eyes that crinkled at the corners, stepped forward with a handkerchief. An actual handkerchief, like her grandfather used to carry. "I'm afraid this might be a lost cause," she laughed, accepting it anyway. "Thanks, though. I'm Olivia." "James," he replied simply. Something about the way he offered only his first name suggested he was accustomed to people not asking for more. She expected him to continue walking, but instead he waited while she swiped her badge again. "The Nakamura exhibition opens tonight, right? I've been looking forward to it." Olivia looked at him with new interest. Haruki Nakamura's abstract sculptures weren't exactly mainstream attractions. You're familiar with his work? His early pieces captured something honest about displacement that spoke to me. He smiled, and Olivia noticed how his dark hair fell across his forehead when he tilted his head. "I should let you get to your coffee emergency." Before she could respond, he was walking away, leaving Olivia with a coffee-stained blouse, a monogrammed handkerchief, and an unexpected flutter in her chest. 12 hours later, Olivia stood in the transformed gallery space. Fairy lights suspended above Nakamura's twisted metal and glass sculptures. The exhibition opening had drawn a larger crowd than expected, a win for the museum and for her career. Her boss had already congratulated her twice. "The lighting design creates exactly the right atmosphere," a familiar voice observed. She turned to find James, now dressed in a well-tailored charcoal suit that somehow looked both expensive and understated. No name tag marked him as a donor or board member. "You made it," she said, surprised at how pleased she felt. "Here? I thought you were just being polite this morning." "I'm rarely polite without purpose," he replied with a smile that transformed his serious face. The suspended lights echoed the suspension in Nakamura's work. "Your design?" Olivia acknowledged. "Most people just see pretty lights." They moved through the exhibition together, their conversation flowing from art theory to childhood museums that had shaped them. James spoke with knowledge but asked questions that made Olivia feel like her perspective mattered. "My favorite is still in here," he said, guiding her to a small alcove where Nakamura's earliest piece stood, a jagged creation of metal and blue glass. "There's something about beginnings, before success changes the artist's relationship with their work. Before they become conscious of being watched," Olivia added, understanding perfectly. When the crowd thinned, James suggested they continue their conversation at the rooftop cafe across the street. Away from the formality of the museum, Olivia found herself sharing stories she rarely told about growing up with artist parents who valued beauty over practicality, about her dissertation on accessibility in modern art spaces. James listened intently, asking questions that suggested genuine interest rather than polite conversation. He shared less about himself, mentioning travel, a love of sailing, a complex relationship with technology. When he spoke about his work, he used we rather than I, and changed the subject before she could ask for details. As midnight approached, Olivia realized they'd been talking for hours. "I should probably head home," she said reluctantly. "Opening nights are exhausting." "Of course," James replied, walking her to her rideshare. "Thank you for the conversation, Olivia. It's been ... refreshing." "Will you be at tomorrow's artist panel?" she asked. A shadow crossed his face. "Unfortunately, I have to leave town." "Business?" He hesitated, then pulled out a business card. "But I'd like to continue our conversation sometime." The card was simple, with only a phone number, no company name, no title. As her car arrived, he pressed the card into her palm. Their fingers touched briefly, and Olivia felt that same flutter return. "Goodbye, Olivia Reed. You've made quite an impression." It wasn't until she was halfway home that Olivia realized he'd never told her his last name. Hidden Truths, the museum buzzed with activity as Olivia guided a school group through the Nakamura exhibition. Her mind, however, kept drifting to the business card tucked in her wallet. 3 days had passed since the opening night, and she'd picked up her phone a dozen times to text the mysterious James, only to put it down again. "Miss Reed, is art supposed to make you feel something?" asked a freckle-faced girl at the back of the group. "That's exactly what it's supposed to do, Penny," Olivia smiled. "What does this piece make you feel? Like someone important saw something broken and thought it was beautiful anyway." Olivia's breath caught. "That's remarkably insightful." Later, as she organized files in her cramped office, her assistant Dominic burst through the door, tablet in hand. "You've seen this?" he demanded, thrusting the screen toward her. The headline read, "Tech Visionary Julian Blackwood announces Revolutionary Solar Storage System." Below was a photograph of a man at a podium. Olivia's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. James, except he wasn't James. He was Julian Blackwood, founder of Blackwood Innovations, the company pioneering affordable, clean energy technology. The article detailed how his new battery system could store solar energy for weeks rather than hours, potentially transforming access to electricity in developing regions. "He's worth billions," Dominic continued, oblivious to Olivia's shock, "and notoriously private. This is his first public appearance in nearly 2 years." Olivia stared at the image. The man at the museum had seemed thoughtful and attentive, but not like someone who could change the world's energy landscape with a press conference. She remembered his comment about beginnings and being watched. It made more sense now. "Earth 2, Olivia." Dominic waved his hand. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," she managed, just surprised by the technology breakthrough. After Dominic left, Olivia pulled out the business card, studying the simple number printed on heavy stock paper. Art theory with a tech billionaire who apparently valued his privacy enough to use a different name. What game was he playing? That evening, Olivia's tiny apartment felt especially cramped as she paced, phone in hand. Finally, she typed a message. "Congratulations on your announcement, Mr. Blackwood." The lighting design was quite innovative. She hit send before she could overthink it, then tossed her phone onto the couch and went to make dinner. When it chimed, 10 minutes later, she nearly dropped her spatula. "Olivia, I was hoping you'd reach out. I owe you an explanation." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. "Would you have spoken so freely if you'd known who I was?" Olivia considered. This, probably not. She would have been more guarded, more professional. She typed back. "Probably would have asked more questions about solar storage systems and fewer about your favorite color." "Blue," came the immediate reply. "Like Nakamura's glass." "I would have missed our real conversation." Olivia sat down, unsure how to proceed. Another message appeared. "Have dinner with me tomorrow? I'm back in town. I promise to use my real name this time." She hesitated. There were 1,000 reasons to say no. He had deliberately misled her. Their worlds couldn't be more different. And yet, on one condition, she replied, "Somewhere normal. No private rooms, no special treatment." "Deal," he responded. "There's a Vietnamese place on Maple Street. It's best pho in the city, according to my driver. 7 p.m. The following evening, Olivia arrived at the small restaurant 15 minutes early, her stomach in knots. The place was modest, plastic chairs, laminated menus, and delicious aromas. No place a billionaire would typically dine. Julian arrived. Precisely at 7, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt. He looked around cautiously before spotting her, then smiled with what appeared to be relief. "You came," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I'm still deciding if that was wise," Olivia replied, studying him. "Why the deception, Julian?" He winced slightly at his name. "I don't generally introduce myself as Julian Blackwood. It changes how people interact with me. They either want something or they're intimidated. Neither makes for genuine connection. So you use fake names regularly." "James is my middle name," he explained. "I use it when I want to just be a person, not a portfolio." The server arrived and Julian ordered in fluent Vietnamese, then turned to Olivia with a sheepish smile. "Another complication of being recognizable. You learn to speak several languages poorly just to maintain some privacy." When traveling, as they ate, Julian gradually revealed more of himself. how he built his company from a graduate school project, how the pressure of public expectations had driven him to become increasingly private, how lonely it was at the top of an empire. That's why the museum felt like such a respite, he admitted. For a few hours, I was just a man talking to a fascinating woman about beautiful things. Is that why you reached out again? Olivia asked. To recapture that feeling? Julian considered her question, his expression serious. Partly, but mostly because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Your perspective, your passion, how you see the world. Olivia felt her defenses wavering. This can't possibly work, you know. Your life is ... extraordinary, mine is monthly budget. Spreadsheets and student loan payments. Maybe that's exactly why it could work, Julian countered. You see value in things beyond their price tag? Do you know how rare that is in my world? As they finished their meal, Julian's phone buzzed. Repeatedly, he silenced it with an apologetic glance. The solar announcement. Everyone wants details. You should go, Olivia said, understanding in her voice. Lives to change, energy crises to solve. Come with me, he said suddenly. To my lab. I want to show you what we're building. The real reason behind everything. Olivia hesitated. This was the moment to politely end whatever this was. To return to her ordered, predictable life. Instead, she found herself nodding. All right, Julian Blackwood. Show me what you're really about. As they left the restaurant, neither noticed the photographer across the street, his telephoto lens capturing the moment the reclusive billionaire held the door for an unknown woman, looking at her with undisguised admiration. By morning, their private dinner would be very public news. Worlds colliding, the headline glared from Olivia's phone screen. Blackwood's mystery woman who has captured the reclusive billionaire's attention. Beneath it was a grainy photo of them leaving the Vietnamese restaurant, Julian's hand resting lightly on her back. Her stomach twisted as she scrolled through the article, which speculated wildly about her identity and their relationship. Didn't take you for a tabloid reader, Dominic remarked, appearing at her office door. His eyes widened when he saw the photo. Wait, is that you? Olivia silenced her phone as it buzzed with another notification. It's not what it looks like. Looks like you're dating Julian Blackwood, a tech wunderkind, who's about to revolutionize renewable energy, Dominic countered. Please tell me what part isn't accurate, because I'm dying here. Before she could respond, the museum director appeared behind Dominic. Olivia, my office. Now, Director Patricia Wellington was not known for warmth, but her expression today was particularly frosty. Care to explain why our associate curator is trending on social media? What?
Ow.
Olivia's voice cracked. Patricia slid her tablet across the desk. Hashtag Who is Blackwood's Girl was trending, with amateur sleuths already identifying her as museum employee Olivia Reed. The board is concerned about how this association might affect our reputation, Patricia continued, particularly with the upcoming fundraising gala. We had dinner. Once, Olivia insisted, heat rising to her cheeks. It's hardly an association. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Olivia, you're brilliant at what you do. But Julian Blackwood moves in powerful circles. His attention brings scrutiny. The museum can't afford negative publicity. Are you asking me to stop seeing him? Olivia asked incredulously. I'm asking you to be discreet and to remember your commitments to this institution, Patricia replied. The Transformative Art Access initiative you proposed needs significant funding. The gala is our chance to secure it. Olivia left the office feeling like the ground beneath her had shifted. Her phone showed 6 missed calls from her parents and dozens of messages from friends. And 1 text from Julian. I'm sorry about the photographers. Can we talk? That evening, a sleek black car with tinted windows idled outside her apartment building. The driver, a woman with a no-nonsense expression, opened the door without speaking. Inside, Julian sat looking uncharacteristically disheveled. I should have warned you this might happen, he said, as the car pulled away. My visibility has increased since the announcement. My boss thinks I'm jeopardizing museum funding, Olivia replied, still processing the day's events. And apparently, I'm trending on Twitter, Julian winced. My PR team can help manage this. We can issue a statement. A statement? Olivia interrupted. About what? We barely know each other. The car turned into a private underground garage, and Julian sighed. You're right. This is exactly what I've always avoided, dragging someone else into my fishbowl. He ran a hand through his hair. Come up. My apartment is secure. We can talk properly. The elevator opened directly into a stunning penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city lights below. But what caught Olivia's attention were the walls covered in art. Not the typical wealthy collector's trophies, but thoughtfully curated pieces by emerging artists. You actually care about art, she murmured, moving toward a small sculpture reminiscent of Nakamura's early work. Did you think I was just making conversation at the museum? Julian asked, sounding slightly hurt. People say they love art all the time, Olivia replied, studying a vibrant canvas. Usually they mean they love what owning it says about them. Julian handed her a glass of water. My mother was an art teacher in a small town. She believed creativity was as essential as mathematics. His expression softened with memory. When I sold my first patent, I bought her a painting she'd admired for years. The joy on her face, that was worth more than the technology. Olivia felt something shift between them. Where is she now? Cancer 4 years ago, he said quietly. The solar storage system was her idea originally, for places where power, infrastructure fails the most vulnerable. Olivia reached for his hand without thinking. That's why this matters so much to you. Their conversation flowed more easily after that confession. Luian showed her early prototypes of his solar panels, elegant in their simplicity. Olivia told him about her transformative art access program, designed to bring museum experiences to underserved communities. The wealthy patrons want their names on buildings, she explained, not on mobile art labs for kids in forgotten neighborhoods. Eyes lit up. What if they could have both? The prestige and the impact. That's not how museum funding typically works. Olivia laughed. Maybe it should, Julian replied thoughtfully. Innovation isn't just for technology. As midnight approached, Julian walked her to the elevator. I'm leaving for Singapore tomorrow. Our manufacturing partner has some concerns about the scale-up. Olivia felt a pang of disappointment. How long will you be gone? 10 days? Maybe 2 weeks? He hesitated. Would you consider coming to the launch event when I return? It's going to be very public, very scrutinized. I understand if that's not something I'll come, Olivia interrupted, surprising herself. But I can't promise I'll know which fork to use for the fish course. Julian's smile was worth the uncertainty. Don't think I've ever looked forward to a corporate event before. The following weeks transformed Olivia's quiet life. Photographers occasionally lurked near the museum. Social media sleuths analyzed her professional profile. Her parents called daily, vacillating between concern and excitement about their daughter's famous boyfriend. Meanwhile, Julian sent messages from across the world, observations about Singaporean architecture. Questions about her day, photos of street art he thought she'd appreciate. Their connection deepened despite the distance. At the museum, Olivia threw herself into preparation for the fundraising gala. If her relationship with Julian was going to cause scrutiny, she would ensure her professional work was unimpeachable. When Director Wellington announced a last-minute addition to the gala, guestless Julian Blackwood himself, Olivia felt both excitement and trepidation. Their worlds were about to collide in a very public way. She wasn't sure either of them was ready for the impact. The night before the gala, Julian called from his just-landed plane. I've missed you, he said simply. Enough to endure a museum. Fundraiser, she teased. Enough to endure anything, he replied, his voice sincere. Including the possibility that I'm complicating your life in ways you never asked for. Olivia touched the small sculpture he'd sent from Singapore, a modern piece by a local artist, capturing the tension between tradition and innovation. Some complications are worth it, she answered softly. Neither mentioned the photographs that had surfaced that morning, Julian emerging from his private jet, Olivia's name clearly visible on his open laptop screen. The caption read, Blackwood returns, business or pleasure. Her private connection was becoming increasingly public, and the boundaries between their separate worlds were blurring beyond recognition. The breaking point, the museum's grand hall, glittered with crystal chandeliers and the jewelry of Boston's elite. Olivia adjusted her borrowed gown. A midnight blue number that Dominic had insisted brought out her eyes, and surveyed the room. With professional satisfaction, the exhibition preview was drawing appropriate gasps of admiration, and checkbooks were emerging earlier than usual. "You've outdone yourself," Director Wellington murmured, materializing beside her. The board is impressed with the turnout. "Thank you," Olivia replied, relaxing slightly. "Perhaps the evening would proceed without Mr. Blackwood has arrived," a staff member announced discreetly, and Patricia's expression sharpened. "Remember, Olivia? Tonight you represent the museum first." Olivia nodded, throat suddenly dry. She hadn't seen Julian in person for nearly 3 weeks. Now their reunion would happen under the watchful eyes of her colleagues, his investors, and Boston's most influential art patrons. He entered without fanfare, but the room's energy shifted. Immediately, conversations paused, then resumed with greater animation. Julian moved through the crowd with practiced ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries. Yet his eyes scanned the room until they found her. The smile that crossed his face made Olivia forget the cameras, the whispers, the professional boundaries she'd promised to maintain. He excused himself from a conversation with the mayor and crossed directly to her, ignoring several attempts to intercept him. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, taking her hand. "I considered sending the company jet to Singapore and bringing you back with me." "And miss all this?" She gestured around them. "The Knops alone are worth staying for." Julian laughed, and several nearby guests turned to observe the normally reserved businessman showing such openness. "I believe I'm required to greet at least 15 major donors before I can claim a dance," Olivia continued. "Museum protocol?" "Wait," he promised, his eyes conveying much more than his words. The evening progressed in a delicate dance of professional obligations and stolen moments. Julian charmed potential donors while respectfully deflecting questions about their relationship. Olivia guided important patrons through the exhibition, all while acutely aware of Julian's presence across the room. During a brief moment alone near a striking landscape painting, Julian brushed his fingers against hers. "I have something to tell you," he said, his expression serious. "The Singapore deal is confirmed. We're building the first large-scale factory for the solar storage units." "Julian, that's wonderful," Olivia exclaimed. "It means I'll be traveling frequently for the next 6 months," he continued. "But I want you to come with me, at least for part of it, see what we're building. Help us incorporate art into the facilities. Make them beautiful as well as functional." Before Olivia could respond, a sharp voice interrupted them. "Julian, I thought that was you." It turned to find a striking woman in an impeccable white gown, her expression cool and assessing. Beside her stood an older man with shrewd eyes and a dismissive glance for Olivia. "Veronica," Julian acknowledged, his posture stiffening. "Gerald, I didn't expect to see you here." Clearly, Veronica replied with a brittle smile. "Won't you introduce us to your friend?" Julian's jaw tightened. "Olivia Reed, this is Veronica Preston of Preston Global Investments and Gerald Winters of the Technology Innovation Board, colleagues from my less pleasant business obligations." "How charming," Veronica remarked, her gaze sweeping over Olivia. "The museum curator. You've been making quite a splash in the financial news, Ms. Reed. Impressive for someone with such modest credentials." Olivia felt Julian tense beside her. "Olivia's work on accessibility in art institutions is groundbreaking," he said firmly. "Something you might appreciate, given your foundation's purported interest in education." Gerald's eyebrows rose. "Come now, Julian, there's no need to be defensive. We're merely surprised by your sudden interest in the arts, particularly given the timing of the regulatory review." A flash of something anger's concern crossed Julian's face. "If you'll excuse us," he said curtly, placing his hand at the small of Olivia's back and guiding her away. "What was that about?" Olivia asked. When they were out of earshot, Julian shook his head. "Industry politics. It's nothing for you to worry about." But his expression suggested otherwise, and the easy connection they'd shared earlier seemed suddenly fragile. Later, as they shared a dance, Julian held her closer than propriety might dictate. "I'm sorry about Veronica and Gerald," he murmured. "They represent everything I dislike about the tech world: privilege without purpose." "What did he mean about regulatory review?" Olivia asked. Julian sighed. My company is seeking approval for our technology in sensitive markets. Veronica's investment group has competing interests in traditional energy. They've been hinting that my distractions might concern the review board. Distractions, Olivia repeated. You mean me? It's manipulation, nothing more, Julian insisted. They've opposed my work from the beginning. The dance ended, and Director Wellington approached with determined steps. Olivia, the Harrington Foundation trustees are asking for you specifically, Mr. Blackwood.
Ow.
I'm sure you understand the importance of our fundraising efforts. Olivia was pulled away. She glanced back to see Veronica cornering Julian again, her expression intense as she spoke rapidly. Julian's face had closed off, becoming the mask of the businessman she'd seen in news. Photographs. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of professional obligations. When Olivia finally had a moment to look for Julian, she found him engaged in what appeared to be a tense conversation with several board members from his company. His phone was pressed to his ear, his expression grim. Is everything all right? She asked, when he finally broke free. There's been a leak, Julian said tersely. Someone's claiming our technology infringes on existing patents. It's nonsense, but the timing, ... Veronica. Possibly. He ran a hand through his hair. I need to go. The legal team is waiting. Of course, Olivia replied, trying to hide her disappointment, I understand. Julian hesitated, then pulled her into a quiet alcove. Come with me, he said urgently. We'll sort this out, then fly to Singapore together. I want you to see what we're building, what it could mean for communities without reliable power. Olivia felt torn between excitement and unease. Julian, I can't just leave. The exhibition, my job. The museum would give you leave for a project. Of this scale, he argued. Think about its art installations at every facility, bringing beauty alongside practical innovation. Is that what this is? Olivia asked quietly. A project? Julian looked startled. Of course not. I want you with me because... His phone rang again, the screen lighting up with his chief counsel's name. Julian glanced at it, conflicted. Take it, Olivia said. We can talk tomorrow. But tomorrow brought new complications. The morning headlines screamed, Blackwood Technologies under investigation, romance or corporate espionage. The article insinuated that Julian's relationship with Olivia might be connected to industrial espionage. Noting the museum's connections to corporations with competing renewable energy interests, by afternoon, the museum board had called an emergency meeting. Patricia's voice was carefully neutral when she informed Olivia that she was being placed on administrative leave until the situation resolves. Olivia sat in her apartment that evening, surrounded by notifications from concerned friends and increasingly invasive media inquiries. Julian had sent a brief message, working to resolve this. Trust me. But as she scrolled through the mounting speculation about her credentials, her motives, her worth, Olivia felt something breaking inside her. Her professional reputation, built through years of dedicated work, was being dismantled by innuendo. The transformative art access program she championed was now in jeopardy because of her personal connection to Julian. When her phone rang with his number, Olivia hesitated before answering. I've been trying to reach you, Julian said, sounding exhausted. The lawyers think they've identified the source of the leak. We can fight this. I've been placed on leave, Olivia replied flatly. Silence stretched between them. I'll fix this. Julian finally said, My team can issue statements, apply pressure where needed. This isn't about your team or your influence, Olivia interrupted. This is my life, Julian. My career, my reputation. Things I built before I ever met you. I know, he said softly, and I'm trying to protect that. That's just it, she responded, the realization crystallizing as she spoke. Your world problems get solved with legal teams and press releases. You can retreat behind corporate walls. I can't. What are you saying? Julian's voice held a note of apprehension. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her decision. I'm saying I need space. To fix my professional situation myself. To figure out if I'm strong enough for what being with you really means. The silence that followed felt like a chasm opening between them. I understand, Julian finally said, his voice carefully controlled. For what it's worth, I never meant for any of this to happen. I know, Olivia whispered. That's what makes it so hard. After they disconnected, Olivia stood at her apartment window, watching the city lights below. Something precious had slipped through her fingers, but she couldn't see any other path forward. Some gaps between worlds were too wide to bridge on with the best intentions. Rewritten stars. 3 months passed. Winter yielded to spring, bringing cherry blossoms to the public gardens and a tentative renewal to Olivia's career. The investigation into Blackwood Technologies had concluded with a full exoneration arrival. Company, not Veronica as suspected, had fabricated the patent infringement claims. The museum board, satisfied that Olivia's reputation posed no risk to their institutional standing, had reinstated her with a formal apology. Life had returned to normal, or something resembling it. Yet Olivia felt the absence of Julian like a phantom limp present in its very absence. She hadn't contacted him since their painful conversation, though she'd followed his company's progress through news reports. The Singapore factory was operational. The first shipments of solar storage units were being deployed too. Rural communities in Southeast Asia, Julian himself had maintained a low public profile, appearing only at technical conferences and avoiding the social events he'd once reluctantly attended. Earth to Olivia. Dominic waved his hand before her face. The community art bus is here. The kids are waiting. Olivia blinked, returning to the present moment. Sorry, I'm coming. The Transformative Art Access Program, her passion. Project had finally launched, though on a smaller scale than originally planned. Today, they were bringing interactive art experiences to a community center in one of Boston's underserved neighborhoods. As she boarded the converted bus with its mobile exhibits and art supplies, Olivia felt a flicker of the purpose that had sustained her through recent months. This, at least, was real, and tangible children who might never visit the museum would today touch art, create art, see possibilities beyond their circumstances. The afternoon unfolded in a blur of activity. Small hands, creating colorful sculptures. Excited voices asking questions about famous paintings reproduced on the bus's walls, faces lighting up with discovery. Olivia guided a young girl through mixing colors, watching with satisfaction as understanding dawned. You're good with them, a voice observed from the bus entrance. Olivia froze, the familiar cadence sending a jolt through her system before she slowly turned. Julian stood in the doorway, dressed more casually than she'd ever seen him in jeans, and a simple gray sweater. His hair was longer, and a hint of beard shadowed his jaw. But his eyes, those were unchanged, watching her with the same intensity she remembered. Julian, she managed, conscious of Dominic's wide-eyed stare from across the bus. What are you doing here? Supporting the Transformative Art Access Program? He replied, his voice carefully neutral. I'm told it's an innovative approach to museum outreach. Before Olivia could respond, a young boy tugged at Julian's sleeve. Are you the bus driver? Julian crouched to the child's level. No, just a visitor like you. What are you making? As the boy proudly explained his clay sculpture. Olivia watched Julian's genuine engagement with the child. No trace of the billionaire. CEO, just a man taking simple joy in a child's creativity. When the program concluded and the children dispersed, Julian remained, helping to clean paintbrushes and reorganize supplies. You didn't answer my question, Olivia said, when they finally had a moment alone. Why are you really here? Julian glanced around the empty bus, then pulled a folded newspaper from his back pocket. It was open to an article about the Transformative Art Access Program, with a small photograph of Olivia working with children. I've kept track of your work, he admitted. When I saw this was launching today, I wanted to see it for myself. It's smaller than we'd planned, Olivia said, running her hand along the converted bus's wall. Budget constraints. I heard the original donor backed out after ... everything. An uncomfortable silence settled between them, 3 months of unspoken words hanging in the air. I'm sorry, they both said simultaneously, then shared a surprised laugh that broke some of the tension. You first, Olivia offered. Julian took a deep breath. I'm sorry I didn't understand what you were risking by being associated with me. I've lived with scrutiny for so long, I forgot how destructive it can be when you're not accustomed to it. Olivia leaned against the bus wall. I'm sorry I didn't give us a chance to work through it together. I was so focused on reclaiming my independence that I pushed you away completely. Another silence, this one less strained. You in Boston? Olivia finally asked. Actually, I've moved back, Julian replied. Permanently. Olivia's eyebrows rose in surprise. What about Singapore? The expansion. I have capable people running operations, he said with a small smile. It turns out a CEO doesn't need to micromanage from across the globe, especially one who's rethinking his priorities. Julian Blackwood delegating responsibility? The business. World must be in shock, Olivia teased, falling easily into their old pattern. His expression grew serious. I've made other changes too. Last month, I established the Blackwood Foundation for Creative Innovation. It's independent from the company, focused on merging art and technology to serve communities like this one. Olivia stared at him. That's significant. Something my mother would have loved, Julian said softly, and something I thought you might understand. The implication hung between them that even during their separation she had influenced his thinking, his choices. More, Julian continued, looking uncharacteristically nervous. The Foundation's first major initiative is fully funding the transformative Art Access Program. Not just one bus, but 10. Serving communities across the state. Julian, Olivia whispered, overwhelmed. That's too much. It's already done. He replied, no strings attached, no public recognition required. The museum board approved it last week. Olivia felt tears threatening. Her dream project, given wings when she'd least expected it. Why didn't Patricia tell me? I asked her to let me tell you myself, Julian admitted. I wanted you to know it wasn't about making amends or buying your forgiveness. It's about supporting work that matters. Olivia studied him, seeing beyond the confident exterior to the vulnerability beneath. And was that your only reason for coming today? Julian held her gaze steadily. No, I came because 3 months without you has been the longest winter of my life, because I realize that all my success means nothing if I can't share it with someone who sees me, not the company, or the innovations, or the bank accounts, just me. He moved closer, close enough that Olivia could see the faint circles under his eyes. Evidence of sleepless nights that matched her own. I don't expect you to pick up where we left off, Julian continued, but I'm hoping you might consider having dinner with me, not the CEO of Blackwood Technologies. Just Julian, the man who still thinks about the curator who called him out on his art knowledge that first day. Olivia felt the last of her defenses crumbling. I might be amenable to dinner, she said carefully. As long as you understand some things have changed. Like what? Julian asked, a hint of worry crossing his face. Like I'm not the same woman who was overwhelmed by the attention, Olivia replied. I faced the worst the tabloids could throw at me and survived. I know what I want now and what I'm willing to fight for. Julian's expression softened. And what is it that you want? Olivia read. She stepped closer, eliminating the remaining distance between them. Work that matters. Art that transforms. A partner who understands both. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Sound familiar? Julian's smile was answer enough, but his words confirmed it. Remarkably similar to what I want. Outside the bus windows, the city continued its rhythms. Inside, 2 people who had found each other across divides of wealth, status, and expectations stood at the threshold of a new beginning. So, Julian said, offering his hand, dinner? Olivia took his hand, feeling the rightness of their fingers interlacing. Dinner, but this time, I'm picking the restaurant. I wouldn't have it any other way, Julian replied, as they stepped off. The bus into the spring sunshine, Olivia realized that some gaps between worlds weren't meant to be bridged, they were meant to be transformed into something entirely new. A space where art met innovation, where passion met purpose, where 2 people from different universes could write their own constellation, not a compromise between separate lives, but a creation uniquely their own. 6 months later, the transformative Art Access fleet of buses rolled out across Massachusetts, each one bearing a small blue plaque, where worlds collide, new stars are born. Olivia and Julian stood hand in hand at the launch ceremony, no longer concerned with who was watching. They had discovered what truly mattered, not the worlds they came from, but the one they were building together.